Today, we're going to go inside to the computer and I'm going to show you the diagram to our water renovation. Let's get started. Alright, so here we are with our floor plan of our theater here. This is the Washington Little Theater in the Bolton Lunsford Playhouse, located at 313 North Alexander Avenue, Washington, Georgia. This is the building that we refer to as this old theater, our old beloved theater. So what we're working on today is I wanted to show you guys kind of what our layout is, the project scope. And my plan is to kind of have a video like this sometime during each of the projects, hopefully at the beginning, so you guys have an idea of what we're going to be doing with in these projects. So as you can see here, we've got a lot of lines and whatnot, and we'll zoom in some. I'll show you some. But this is the basement, so this is what we refer to as the basement room 1 or the workshop. And then we've got our second room, which is where we store all of our large set items, really big props and stuff like that. Then we have a third room here in the back, and that's where we store a whole bunch of other junk. Right now, the plumbing comes in, all of our main water comes in through room 3, kind of up here. And that's where we're going to install that new ball valve right there. We're going to cut in. So right now the plumbing comes in here down near the floor. It actually comes about all the way down here, which is really weird. And then it goes up about 5 feet, then comes back over again over here. And let's see, where does it go from there? It goes up. Yeah, it actually goes up through the floor, which is really strange. So one of the hallmarks, you might say, of this building is because it's very old and the renovation was done in 1978. Which is probably when the most recent plumbing was put in there. I'm not sure. They may have redone some stuff since then, but the building was basically plumbed however was easiest and cheapest at the time, and that was not always the best, most efficient way. Interestingly, those things are not mutually exclusive. But so our plumbing, after it comes in, it goes to an old brass valve, which I thought would be corroded. Thankfully it's not corroded, but we're still going to replace it. And that's the current main valve that we're going to be replacing. Then it goes up and it tees off one to the front of the building, and the other one actually goes up into the backstage area, so you can see it in the stage left wing. And then from there we trace it along the wall. It comes around to where our dressing rooms are, and then comes over all the way backstage. So for reference here, I'll show you here on the picture. So it comes up here, comes all the way over here. Again, this is on the first floor. And then it comes over here to our backstage area, somewhere around here. And I'm showing you the basement here, and I'm describing upstairs the existing water line. I did not put that on this drawing because it wasn't really relevant, because we're replacing all of it. But so that water line actually comes over to here, where there's a very, very old water heater. Looks like there's probably a 50-gallon water heater was there at some point. And then from there, it kind of spiders out somewhat along the walls here. It goes to the necessary room, restroom right here, but it kind of spiders along the wall, goes back over to our dressing rooms over here. And there is a hot line, of course, that follows along with that, where the hot water heater was. And so that's how the lines go, and they're all upstairs. They're very visible. They're on the walls. They are hanging in some really weird positions. Those lines are definitely stressed a lot more than they should be. So that's how the back is, and the front is actually a lot more normal. It tees off of the location here, runs along here, goes in here, and splits up about how you would expect a plumbing pipe to do. But those lines they're very old. So far we have not had any leaks with them. They're working fine. But our main goal here is, well, first we started out, we wanted to add hot water to the building because we live in Georgia, and in the winter it gets very, very cold. The water gets practically ice cold. And with our rehearsal schedule, we're performing in Novembers and Decembers, which get very cold here, and we start rehearsing our spring show in January, February, stuff like that, where it is very cold. So for a good portion of our operating year, our volunteers are having to deal with ice cold water, and for some of those performances our patrons have to deal with ice cold water. And we just thought, it's time we did something about that. So there was a water heater here, like I said, eons ago. Technically the unit itself is still here, it's just not hooked up, it doesn't work. So we wanted to replace it, but we didn't think it would be wise to have 50, 100 gallons of water constantly being heated. We could probably get away with a 20-gallon one, but honestly we don't need it heating constantly, because there's sometimes periods of times where the theater isn't very active for several weeks on end. We don't need to be spending that money constantly heating that water. So that's why we looked into instant water heaters or tankless water heaters, and that's what we decided to do here. So what we're going to do is we're going to install a tankless water heater right here in this part of room 2. So we've got our main water coming in over here. We're gonna cut that, add a new main valve right inside the wall, because that's where it should be. It needs to not be over here in the middle of the room, because that's just strange, and it's gonna get in the way of future projects. So we're gonna add that main valve over here. We're gonna tee it off. Both sides of the tee are gonna have a valve so that we can turn them on and off independently. Got one tee going to go out to the new system. Got the other section of the tee is going to go to our old system. So throughout this whole project, our old system is going to remain 100% operational until we get everything on the new system converted over. So at one point there will actually be both the new and the old system are going to be operational side by side. And I'm going to do it that way because since I'm going to be doing most of the work, me and my brother and some of the volunteers here at the theater, we're also some of the main people that run the theater. So we're going to be doing work as we can between different productions. And it may be that we, get all of the main piping run, and then, it's performance time, and we won't be able to work on it for like 2 weeks. So, but obviously, you can't have faucets and toilets and stuff down for that period of time. So we're going to set it up like this to where we've got 2 concurrent systems running, and then once I have all of the water to each faucet and toilet location, as I have time, say an hour or 2, I will swap over that singular faucet or that singular toilet to the new system, cap off the old system, and then that one will be good. And then I'll do that to the whole system eventually. Ideally, I'll do like an entire room at a time, because every time you cut into a line, of course, you're going to have to drain some of it. And I would prefer not to drain a whole bunch of the system. With the 2 valves here, we will be able to turn off all of the front or all of the back completely independently of each other. But as it stands right now, we don't have any sub valves set up in this system. Now, I could certainly add some, and I may very well do that depending upon how this project progresses. But I'm hoping I won't have to. So anyways, that's how that's gonna go. So we're gonna bring our water over here, gonna keep it around the edge of the room, because there's already HVAC ducts that run around here. So you can't really use that space anyways. But you always wanna keep your wiring and your plumbing and your ductwork as much as possible. Keep it out of the way of your room. Keep it up or to the side. So we're gonna run this pipe around the edge of the room. That's not gonna gain us any space right now because there's a ductwork there, but ultimately that ductwork is gonna get moved as well, and it's gonna be either put up or put over, and we'll be able to reclaim that space. It's like a 10-foot by 4-foot area here. So as you're designing these systems, design them for the future. You know, yes, it would be easier to just run that pipe straight across here, but then going forward, you have to reroute that pipe, and it doesn't take that much more work, and it only costs a couple more dollars to route it around the edge of the room properly, and then you never have to touch it again. Okay, so our water is going to come in here. It's going to convert into PEX, which is a flexible plumbing system. We're going to use that for the majority of this new plumbing. And I'll probably talk about that more in another video, probably when we start doing the PEX. But so this right here is our 1-inch hardline PVC. You could use CPVC, but I just decided to stick with PVC because it's not a high pressure or high temperature application, so PVC is perfectly acceptable. And it's a little easier to work with. So our 1-inch PVC hardline is going to convert into PEX and then go into a T. Then that's going to tee up into a valve directly before the water heater, and we want this for 2 reasons. One, because I don't have the water heater fully figured out yet, because Ricky is the electrical guy and he's working on that. We've ran into a couple little hiccups there that we'll discuss in a future video, but so we want to be able to run all the rest of the system even if the water heater isn't functioning yet. And 2, you always want to be able to easily turn off water going into the water heater, because there's a myriad of reasons why you may need to cut or change how the water goes into the water heater. So we've got that valve there, so if that's off, all the rest of the cold water in the building is still going to function. So then from here we've got it going up, and on this diagram I've actually got, it kind of looks like the these additional valves are going to be in the ceiling. They're actually going to be on the wall here, but I'm working with a 2D model here, so I can only show you kind of a top-down view. I may throw up a diagram kind of showing what it's going to look like on the wall. I probably will do that. But anyways, so we've got valves controlling both the hot and the cold going to the back area, the backstage area, and the front, the lobby area. And that way we can independently turn off those. So if I need to work on the lobby, backstage is still working. Or if I need to work on backstage, we still have the stuff in the lobby working. So very, very important to put those valves in there so that you always have at least part of your system working, okay? So, and then from there, all of that is honestly pretty simple. What we're gonna do is, once we've got this set up, we're gonna run what's called a main trunk line, which are these lines here. That's gonna be 3/4 inch PEX. You could run 1-inch PEX, but honestly, we don't need to, because this building is not that big. Like, it's a fairly big building, but it's not so big that it would require that, because we don't have a ton of water usage. If we had like showers or something like that, or we had lots of toilets or restroom facilities, yeah, you'd probably want to run something larger like 1-inch. But we can get away perfectly fine with 3¼ inch. So here you see we're going to run it along that wall there. We're either going to run it along the ceiling or that same wall that we did the other line. I'm not entirely sure yet. We'll decide that when we get into it. But then we're keeping it, either way, we're keeping it up and out of the way. Excuse me. And we put it through the wall, and then we're elbowing over. So this PEX, it can make curves. Unlike hardline, it can actually make some curves, but those curves are usually pretty wide, which is fine if you've got a nice big open space. But here we're wanting to keep this very tight so it doesn't get in the way of any future stuff. So we're actually going to use 90-degree elbows. So once that pops through on the other side of this wall, we're going to elbow it and connect it up to this truss here, and then bring it over here, and then we're going to elbow it and connect it to this main beam here. This main beam runs along the entire length of the building. So we're just gonna, and so it's a main beam running the whole length of the building. It ain't gonna be messed with. So if we attach our pipes to that, we know we never have to worry about them getting in the way of anything, because the beam is already in the way, and the beam is not gonna move, okay? Because it's the main structural member. So we will attach those up to there, run those all the way that whole distance, and then we'll bring them over here. And you see, as it turns out, those actually drop in right about in the middle of our plumbing. Not quite, but pretty close to it. So then we'll put these little T's in here. It's got 3/4 inch on two sides and 1/2 inch on one side. We'll be using 1/2 inch going from our main trunk lines to each of our fixtures. So we'll just cut in and pop a T in right here to do this sink, and then this sink, and we'll use a 3/4 inch T to put 3/4 inch this way, because we need a lot more. You always need more cold than you need hot, because you don't need hot water going to your toilets or stuff like that. So that's why we're going to run cold up this way. And again, this is it's a diagram. Some of these runs may be a little straighter than this, but I do have them going to approximately where the joists are on this, because you want them hidden. You gotta have something to connect them to first and foremost. You do not want them just hanging there. And ideally, I want to kind of hide them up in the joist cavities, so that anytime any other work is being done in this area under here, they don't get in the way. We want to be smart about it. So coming down here, we got the fountain. Now these two lines here, we're continuing this 3/4 inch. This is actually going down all the way to this other side of the building, where our lobby, concessions, and box office booth would be. We do not currently have a sink there. We don't have any water means there, because there's no water over there. However, we want to install in the next couple of years kind of like a little kitchenette area there with a sink. So I'm going to go ahead and run those lines now, because it's easy to go ahead and do it now. Easier to do it now, get those in place, rather than go back in, say, a year from now, and we try to remember, okay, how did we do this? Okay, So we're just running it now. Now that is a really long run. It's about 40 feet or so, 30 to 40 feet. That's just going to be filled with water for a while. And so it's going to be capped on the end. I may wind up putting a valve on it somewhere over here, because we don't really need that filled with water for that whole time. Not really a good idea. So I may put a valve somewhere over here just to cut those off. And also then, when we finally install that stuff for the sink, we can cut off that new area without affecting the lobby. So there's a good chance I'll do that, but it's not on the current plan. So that's kind of that. And then coming over here to the back side of our backstage area. So our lines, again, they're running alongside our wall here. This is our outer wall. We keep them away from other stuff. Drop down into the sinks to this little old restroom here. Come over here, make a 90-degree corner. I do a little bit of fancy footwork here, because first we're going to come off of our 3/4 inch, and then we're going to kind of go up into the joist cavity, and then we're going to tee those off, because we've got two sinks here. This is actually the ladies' room, dressing room is up here, up top, and the men's room is down here. Both sinks are basically on either side of this wall here, so it's going to be pretty easy. We're just going to bring the pipe up there, tee it, and then go through the wall of each of those. So that's pretty easy. Then it's going to continue down here, again, staying against the wall, staying out of the way. That's what you want to do. Stay against walls or stay up in joist cavities. This room here, the joists actually run perpendicular. They run this way, left and right. The rest of the building, they run up and down, okay? And that's because this area here above it was the original stage area, so they had to support it differently. So right here is going to be our paint sink area. is where our paint sink is currently, and you might notice that we have two sets of hot and cold here, and that's because when we redo the paint sink, which is planned to be done probably later this year, maybe next year, we're going to actually have two sinks there, which is really cool. That way we can have two people washing stuff out, or one of the sinks is going to have like a hose sprayer like you might have in an industrial kitchen or something. The other one's going to have kind of a more standard faucet, but it's going to have a faucet that you can attach like a garden hose to, and that way we will have the ability to put either hot or cold water into a hose and pipe that directly onto the stage if we wanted to. Singing in the rain possibly? Lots of options there. So again, future proofing. And then this line will just continue down through here. It's got to do a little bit of fancy changes here to get to the sink in the necessary room. And then here's an interesting point down here. See this blue line? So currently the toilet in the necessary room is over here. And again, I'm talking about stuff on the next floor above. On this diagram, I don't have that, but I'm showing you where it is. So the toilet is right over here right now, but it actually needs to be moved over here. And that's because, as you see here, this says existing stairway. So that's a stairway that's been closed up that we are going to open up, and it comes down this way. And right now that toilet, the sewer drain from that toilet, runs kind of through that stairway area, which is not good. So we can't open up that stairway until we move that toilet. So we know that toilet has got to move ultimately. So it's going to move closer to this corner. That's why we're running this PEX line over here. This is running under the floor. This is the ceiling in the basement. It's going to pop up through the floor near where that toilet needs to be. And then we're going to run basically a temporary line from there along the edge of the room over to where the toilet is currently, so that then when I get around to putting the new sewer lines in, which will be a separate project, similar but separate, different videos, we'll run that new sewer line in here, move the toilet over, and then it'll be super easy to just take this small PEX piece out and reconnect it right there, and then boom, we got new toilet area. So that's the basic gist of what we're running here. Let's see, what else do you guys need to know about this? So we went through quite a bit of planning to get to this point, and we considered a number of different things. First, this started out as we just want to get hot water into the building, and we were like, you know what, if we have to run, so when we figured that out, we were like, okay, where's the hot water lines? Well, we saw where the hot water lines were. They were backstage in a really strange position, and they're all over the place walls, where we've got renovations planned for that area in the next probably 5 years. And so those pipes are going to get in the way. And all of those pipes, like the ones in the wing, it's a terrible location. Like I said, the pipes were done whatever was easiest at the time. I can totally understand how the way they ran them would have been easiest at the time, but it's not really the best way to do it. But we're able to intentionally decide to do it the best way now for this, because this is not something we have to do, this is something we're choosing to do, and therefore we are choosing to do it correctly. So we're gonna move those underneath. So as we were working through that, we decided we didn't want to use those hot water lines. So if we have to run new hot water lines to basically the whole building anyways, we might as well run cold water while we're at it, because if you do both at the same time, it's actually not quite double the work. It's only a little bit more work, because you're already in there with a hot line, you might as well run a cold line. So that's what we decided to do. It'll almost double the cost of piping, obviously, because you're running two pipes, but it'll modernize the system. Those pipes should be good for probably 50 years at least. PEX is usually very durable. If it's kept out of the UV, do not leave it in the sun. I've heard, I think even 15 to 30 minutes in direct sunlight can be quite bad for PEX. So try to avoid that. Don't let it bake in the back of your car either, or anything like that. So this system will be really good once it's in place. And you know, that's kind of where we're at with that. I'm trying to think if there's anything else about this system. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. There's probably a good chance I've left something out here, or you may come up with something, and I'd be happy to answer those. In regards to the electrical for the water heater, so we do have that up here. I'll just touch on that a little bit. Like I said, we're gonna have an entirely different video for that, where Ricky is going to go into detail about that. So our water heater, the one we're looking at, actually requires 340 amp circuits. So the water heater is going to be installed right here, and then this yellow line is we're going to have to run some wire. It's either 8 or 6 gauge wire, I'm not sure, over or along here and to our panel here. And it's looking like we may actually have to install a new panel there, because that's, you know, 3 by 40 amps is 120 amps, so we need like a 200 amp service down there. We do already have a service, but it's only 100 amp, so we have to look into you know, upgrading that, see what we need to do there. We're going to get an electrician in here to give us some ideas and estimates on what we need to do there. So all of the stuff in this project is honestly relatively easy to do. Some of it can be quite time consuming, but there is no major difficulties here. The electrical is the most challenging part. Anytime you're working with electricity, you gotta make sure you know what you're doing, because electricity can kill very easily and very quickly. So that's why I'm starting on the water. The water, the worst thing you're gonna do is you're gonna make a mess, okay? But if you do it right, you're not even gonna make a mess, okay? This will require some basic carpentry skills. We're going to be building a little bit of a wall in that water heater area, and we're going to be attaching our PEX to some wooden joists and beams. We may be cutting through 1 or 2 walls. We will likely be cutting through a couple of floor areas. So it requires, you know, some very basic construction skills. None of that is difficult. None of it is advanced. And I'll show you how to connect all the PEX and stuff when we get to that point, and how to connect PVC connections and whatnot. It's really, it might seem more intimidating than it really is. It's really not that difficult. It's just kind of time consuming. This whole project is going to take us quite a while, because like I said, we can only work on it you know, a little bit here and there. We work on it, you know, like 1 day a week, sometimes not every week, you know, because it just depends on our schedule. So but we will keep you updated every step of the way as we continue on in this project. I'm really excited for it. This is one of our first major renovations coming to our theater here, and it's going to be one of many. So we hope you continue following us along on this journey as we continue to renovate our beloved old theater. Have a great day.